Hi, I'm DJ Ware. On this episode of the Cyber Gizmo, I'm going to be taking a look at MX Linux, but with a slight twist. I had promised not to touch the command line in the future videos where I do reviews, and so I'm not going to touch the command line. I'm just going to do this all from the GUI, from the graphical user interface. And so let's get started with MX Linux right after this. So I'm at my desktop here, and I am going to, I think, yeah, we'll try this. I have this in here already. I'm going to remove that version of it. I want to make sure I'm not deleting. Yes, okay, good. So just that much. I have a previous version. I want to just start from fresh. And so I'm going to choose to load this from an ISO. And it's asking me to go get that ISO, and I'll go to my downloads folder and find MX19. It's right there. And then the next step would be to turn the automatic off. I'm going to use Debian because MX16 is based on Debian 10. And so that should give me a pretty close approximation to what I need. I'm going to give this 4 gig of memory and 2 CPUs. And then when I installed this earlier, the packages that I installed, this is not the default install, but about the base packages were around 19 gig or so. So I'm going to double that so I have a little extra room to play around with. I'm certain I won't use all that, but that's okay. I'm going to rename this to MX19. And I'll check to make sure my network settings are set to NAT. And we'll go ahead and finish, and it should create the installation and then start it running. So I have my screen up, but I need a scale display. Otherwise, it's going to be really hard for you to read. So hopefully that's a little better. This is Petito Feo, and that is Spanish for, I believe, ugly duckling. It certainly is not ugly. I don't think MX19 is ugly at all. I think it's quite nice. So we're at the live screen, and from here there's a number of things I can do. I could look at frequently asked questions. And this I find very nice, that on the system included with it is a full manual. So I have all the information I need about, well, what is this thing called MX Linux? Some of the information about some of the conventions that are used in the manual and to identify things that are important or things that are required to be entered. The system requirements is, of course, either an Intel or an AMD processor that is i686 compatible. In other words, it supports 64 bits at least. A half a megabyte of RAM and 5 gig of hard disk. And you need a 4 gig live. You need a 4 gig thumb drive in order to install the live USB if you're going to use a USB stick to do that. How to report bugs, and then an introduction, creating a bootable medium, pre-installation steps, what you might want to do if you're coming from Windows. There's a very good overview in here about, if you're going to be moving over, let's say at the end of this month from Windows 7 to Linux, for example, that you might want to pay attention to this part of the manual. And then a first look at it, what you can expect and so forth. I just find that so refreshing to have the manual available at my fingertips if I need it. So yeah, well done, MX. And then I don't need anything of this right now. I'm going to go ahead and install this first, and then we'll come back to that window. So right now I don't need that, but the installer is right here. And I'll just single click on that. and it will go out and look at some of my hardware. At least it tells me I have a 105 key keyboard, which I do, and it is a US laid out. Now I could go in and customize the partition. It's going to use gparted, and I could break up my hard drive any way I wanted. Because this is on a virtual machine, I have a tendency not to do that. Because then it makes it easier for me to just snapshot the virtual machine and be done with it. So like if I need to get back to a previous release or a previous run because maybe I installed something that broke the system, which I do quite often, it allows me to just snapshot and roll back in. So if this was done on real hardware, I probably would take the time and actually bust this up into partitions. Typically, I create three. I usually create one, either 3 or 4. I'll create a root partition, which will have the boot directory in it, or if I have to, because I'm using maybe a laptop or something, I might create a boot partition in addition to that. And then I usually create one for the home directory, and I usually create one for temp. So those are usually the ones that I create, and just to keep things segregated. I do the reason I use home on its own partition is so that if I do an upgrade or later on, if I blow away the system, I'll have all my tools that are in my home directory, my MP3s and pictures and videos and all that kind of stuff. But for today, I'm not going to bother with that. I'm just going to let it run on the entire disk. Now I could encrypt this. This is under VM. The system drive is already encrypted, so I don't think I need to do that twice. The system directory of the main machine that's running this VM is already encrypted. So I don't need to do it twice. I guess if you're really paranoid, you could do that. Just make sure you use a different key than the one you used on your desktop PC. I'm going to go ahead and let this run, and I'll be back when it's done. It's about 4:30 Eastern time, so I'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, so that didn't take too long to get to this point. Right now, it's at 94%, and it's paused for operator input. And I didn't want to rush by this and not show you what comes after at this point. There is some additional steps you want to do. So when you see that message come up, you'll go ahead and hit the next button down here. And I'm just going to go ahead and leave all this stuff the same. It's under VM, doesn't really matter. And then I will change this, though, because I really would like my clock to work correctly for my time zone. So I'm going to go up here to Chicago, and I'll select that. I could look at the service settings, and it will show me what things are going to be installed. In fact, we can bring that up. But as you can see, there's a number of system services that are coming up along with Bluetooth, although oddly enough, this machine doesn't have Wi-Fi or Bluetooth on it, so interesting that it chose those, but maybe those were just in the VM defaults. But we'll go ahead and set up a default user account and give that a password. And then it also wants one for root. Don't make these the same. Never do that. And then I could show the passwords, or I could choose auto login, or I could save my desktop changes. I'm just going to go ahead and let this finish out. Now at this point it's done. So as you saw, it said I'm saving the system configuration that I just gave it. Now it's installing Grub. So we just have to wait a little bit for Grub to complete. And it's almost there. And then it should tell me to give me a finish button down here, and it'll probably say something about, there it is. So it's going to tell me it's going to automatically reboot the system. I can turn that off if I want to continue to play with the live environment. But you can see that didn't take a lot of time. I think about 3 minutes to do. If you are using Wi-Fi, of course, that is going to take longer. So I'm going to go ahead and finish, and the system is going to reboot. It should pause here for after it restarts to tell me to get rid of the ISO. So I will do that. That's down here. I used the light bulb, and I'm coming down here to the SATA CD-ROM, and I'm just going to clear that. and apply that. And then I will come back over here and we'll just tell it to reboot and it should come in. So this is MX19 Patito Feo, and I believe that means ugly duckling in Spanish, if I remember my Spanish. Okay, so we are booted into the real environment, not the live. And now this time it's giving me this. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the tweak panel. I'm going to let Synaptic Manager is loading here, and it's saying you have 132. So we'll do those updates. But before we do that, so I noticed that when I pressed the tweak panel here, it backed up my settings in a hidden folder called .restore in my home folder. So in my home directory under .restore are a copy of all of my current panel settings, which is very nice. If I make a mistake and delete a panel or something like that, I can easily restore that and get it back. So that, well done. I'm going to move I have a preference for this to be on the bottom. You may like it on the side. I'm not going to change anything else right now. I probably will in a bit. I want to make sure that I get my packages updated first. So I'm selecting the Synaptic Package Manager down here, and it's telling me, yeah, you've got these packages that need updating. And so I will go ahead and upgrade all those. But before I do, I don't want to sit here and go, yes, yes. Just let it go. It's asking me for my root password. This is not a sudo password. This is your root password. So now I didn't bring up the terminal window. It did, so don't blame me. All right, so. Okay, so it's done, and I'm going to press any key, and then it'll close the window. I'm going to go ahead and choose a theme set. I think I will use that one. And that's okay. That's okay. So the only other thing I want to do here is to go into the display settings. And that should be, I want to get this set up so I can go full screen with it. And so I'm going to do 1920 by 1080. And we'll apply that. And then I will hit the full screen button here. And we should be all set. So the last thing I really need to do is to restart in order to get I had some updates, and so I need to restart this. And so let's go ahead and do that. So what I have left to do here is basically install some packages and turn on some configuration that I want this particular VM to have, and we're just waiting for the system to come back up again, or we're waiting for it to actually come back down again. Not sure which way it's going here, but we'll see. I think it's rebooting. So yeah, it's coming back up. Took it a while to come down. Okay. Wait for Conky to come up here, which has the clock in it. You can turn that off if you want. Let's see. There it comes. So at this point, what I need to do is to go into the Synaptic Package Manager to install some of the things that I want, and I think that's under System. Yes. Again, this is not a sudo password. This is your root password. So I'm going to install fail to ban. And then I'm going to go find OpenSSH. Server, which should be there. I'll also put, yeah, it's also going to put the FTP server on. That's fine. I also want the SSH in case I want to go out. And let's see, I also want aid. And that should be it. I should be able to apply this, and hopefully it remembered. Aid, failed to ban, SSH. Yeah, all looks good. That's what I asked for. I did not have to. I do not have to install HTOP. It's already here. I did see that earlier when I was playing around with it. So that's done. I'm done with this. So the other thing I'll probably want to do is, let's see, let's go back down here to System. There is something that's kind of cool, which is the disk usage. And I can scan a folder, which is my root folder, and then it'll show you where your largest directories are. Now, I don't have a lot out here yet, but I'll get there. So so right now there's 5.6 gig that's being used by the root, and 4.7 of that is in user. And you can see that, this is the user down here. Over here is the share folder, and then var, LibreOffice, Thunderbird, all these apps down here. So yeah, it's a nice view of being able to see, where your disk is being consumed. Now, typically my home folder would be a lot larger than 18.3 megabytes. If I start putting my stuff out here, if I start using this, yeah, that will become the preponderance of the system. I guarantee you I'll have more than 6 gig. So yeah, so that's kind of nice. The other thing I want to do, MX Linux uses UFW as its firewall, and the one Ubuntu uses for this is GUFW. So I'm going to go ahead and start that. And the status right now is it's not running. Now I could set this up for a public profile or a home profile, office, whatever profile I want, but I'm going to go ahead and turn it on first. And then we'll go to rules. The rule I need is, this is a allow. It correct, it's network. The subcategory, I think, services, and then SSH. So basically what I'm telling the system is I want to allow users to be able to SSH into this VM, specifically me. But yeah, I need to have the firewall open. But as for the rest of it, it defaults to deny. So anything else inbound into this particular VM is denied. Everything is allowed going out, so by default. So I think this is done, so I can close this up. Yep, it shows, it validates that those are running. And I didn't touch the command line to do this. So some other things that you probably will want to do is change the background wallpaper. There's a lot of good ones. I kind of default more toward landscape scenes that are a bit darker. It's a little easier. And these high nit display monitors that, especially at night, gets a little hard on the eyes, as I'm sure most of you know. So, as for the other utilities that's here, they have, I'm going to go into the MX tools. There is an MX configuration, I think. Yeah, there it is. So they have a nice menu where you have a number of things that you can do inside of MX19. This one is kind of nice. Normally, if I create a live USB stick, I would have to go download Etcher or use DD from the use DD from the command line. I can't do that today. But yeah, this is nice, is that you have that ability right here to make a live snapshot onto a USB drive. That's helpful if you ever need to get back into your system again and do a recovery on the system if you needed to. And this one I find really nice, although I would not use this in this particular VM environment because I typically snapshot outside the VM with it down. But yeah, if you're on real hardware, this allows you to take a snapshot of your system and store it in, I think it's in home by default. It's home snapshots. Yeah, home snapshot. So this would take a snapshot of the entire system and keep it for you in case you ever need to restore it. So very nice. But again, because it's under VM, I would do my snapshots outside. But yeah, that's a nice utility. There's also a chroot rescue scan. There's some boot options. We'll take a look at that. I'm just going to look at a few of these things. So yeah, this would be your grub options here for how long, the initial screen comes up and whether or not you want to turn off splash. If you want to actually see the text fly by and what each service is doing as it's loading, you can do that. Helpful when you're debugging, but you can also do that at the time you boot into grub as well. You can do temporary ones, but if you want to change the theme, you can do that on the grub menu. Boot repair, cleanup, menu editor, user manager. So here, I'm assuming it would have options for both group and user. So yeah, I can add other accounts to the system. And I can also add and remove groups. So if I wanted to set up, maybe I have a developers group and maybe I have a data group that's set up for databases or whatever, I can do that. So yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Also allows you, I think, to modify. Yeah, so I can come in here and restore my default group memberships. Of course, I can always go here and see my group memberships and just add them. So yeah, that's much easier than going into the command line and adding my name to the back of each group that I want. So yeah, pretty nice. Bash config allows you to set up and I'm not allowed to go into the terminal, so I can't show you this, but yeah, there's some of the color settings on it. There's your prompt. If you want it default or you want fancy, and I think there's some options for how you want it to look. But again, I'm not allowed in shell today, so I can't show you that one. If you have an NVIDIA driver, this allows you to, if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, this allows you to install the driver for it. There's also an installer for codecs. There's the Conky config menu, date and time, network assistant. This should allow me to go in and do a status on. Now this is looking at hardware. So yeah, you're actually seeing the hardware for the system here. And yeah, so let's see. There's the tweak menu again, a welcome screen, system keyboard, system locale, package installer, repo manager. Should allow me to check which repos I want to go to. I'm just checking to see if I'm still recording here. I think so. Yeah. So, yeah, if you want to bring the repo closer to where you live, that's not even close, but I guess that's all right. It didn't seem to be that big of a deal. It would seem to be running pretty good. If you want to format, quick system info. Okay, so it gives me some information about my hardware, my graphics card, my audio. But again, this is looking at the VM, so not the actual hardware of the system. Not bad. And then I wonder if this actually, now it's not smart enough to take me to the actual section in the manual, but that's okay. I still like the fact there's a manual here. Some of us still read manuals. Let's see what development tools they have. Geni, which is fine, and an icon browser. So, yeah, Geni allows you to create code and actually build projects and have it run. So it's okay as an IDE. Not my preferred one, but it's all right. Let's go into Impress. I think I saw 6.1 was the version when it was installing the updates. 6152. So yeah, so my comment is about Debian-based systems. And Debian, don't get me wrong, is a great distro. It is known for its stability. It's also known for dragging its feet on getting new packages to install. So this is, I think it's a 4. I can't go into, I could go back to the system info screen, I guess, and look at that. But yeah, I'm not allowed to go into there. So yeah, I just keep wanting to sneak down into the shell. But it's 419 is the kernel build on this, and that is the last LTS release, and 5.3, of course, will take over for that the next time Debian, well, whatever is the LTS at the time, Debian builds Debian 11. Usually it's about every 2 years for Debian. So yeah, you can install packages that are newer if you want to go and use what they call their test environment. So yeah, if you really need newer packages, you can do that. I also know, for me, Gluster FS is important, and I also noticed that it was 5.3. So what do I think about MX? It's an XFCE environment. I like XFCE. You do have your choice. You can install other desktops if you want to. I noticed that Mate was there. Also, KDE was there. So if you want to install those, you can do that as well. So all in all, there's the things I like about it is it's quick, it's responsive, it doesn't take up a lot of resource, and I didn't show that, did I? So let me bring up HTOP here, and I'll switch the camera view back. So yeah, HTOP. Oops. So yeah, HTOP is taking, let's see, memory, 550 meg out of the 4 gig. So yeah, that could have gotten by with 1 gig on this VM. And I might change that. And it's 107 tasks running, 134 threads. It's not bad, not bad. I bet if I put Python on here, I could probably get that to 200 pretty easily. Python and Docker. So I bet I could easily get that over 200. But anyway, my thoughts on this is that I like it. I think it's a good OS. This I think would work better for someone that's just coming into Linux. Because simply, as you saw, I didn't have to do a lot with the command line. Everything was here. I can take snapshots from the GUI. I can set up packages. I can set up my file systems. I'm sure there's a backup utility in here as well. Although, let's see. I'm sure there is. But with the snapshot manager, why do you need it? I mean, you can, if you include the folders that you want to back up, you can snapshot that, and then just do an rsync over to another server. Is what I would do, is do that in combination. You don't rely on snapshots to be your only way to back up, because if the hard drive fails, your snapshot will fail with it, unless you just happen to keep your snapshots on another drive. So anyway, my thoughts are it's very good. I like it. It's very fast, and I'm impressed with it. I am going to put this on the H1, the Odroid H1, and get that up and running there. And so next week when I'm doing my benchmarks, this is the OS that I'll be doing those benchmarks against. I will be comparing against Ubuntu and some others that are running on ARM against that platform, just to see how well the $50 to $100 computers compete. Hope you enjoyed this today, and as always, when I do these, please like and subscribe. Hope to see you again real soon, and bye for now.